What's up, Ragin Nation? My name is Alex. You're watching the Ragin Ronin review, and in this video we're going to get into a little bit of spoiler detail with regards to Total Recall, the remake. If you haven't checked out my review, check it out right here. And if you want to continue watching, be warned, there's going to be spoilers because we're going to talk about this movie in more detail. So I got some questions and comments about this movie, so maybe you got something to say about it. But anyways, just a little bit of a recap. The movie, the remake rather, does not take place on Mars and has nothing to do with Martians, but the foundation is still there, and that is selling memory implants. So that's all they have that is really from the original. Now in the original, the commodity that Cohagen was controlling was air. In this new one, the remake, it is living space. Earth in the original is now represented by the United Federation of Great Britain in the remake, and Mars in the original is now represented by the colony, which is actually Australia in the remake. And the story really is that chemical warfare has ravaged the entire planet and only leaving these two colonies left for people to live in, thus making living space a valuable commodity. So that is established right from the very beginning. And I think that poses a bit of a problem. Well, not really a problem, but a little bit of a flaw for the movie. And that's because in the original, the concept of not having enough oxygen on Mars, that's discovered later on in somewhere around the second half of the second act of the Total Recall original. In the Total Recall remake, the concept of not enough living space and living space being a valuable commodity is revealed right from the very beginning. So there's no real surprise there. The story doesn't progress to reveal that to us, unlike the original. But I still gotta say that I like the concept. Even though it did not take place on Mars, I still felt that they had potential with this concept. Like I said in my review, it just fell flat in the third act because there's no more surprises and the story does not develop any further to anything more interesting. Now here's the main thing that I want to talk about that I did not like about the remake. If you've already seen my review, you already know that I mentioned that in the third act, the writing just got completely lazy and they just felt like they wanted to wrap it up. They couldn't think of any more cool action sequences, so they decided, okay, let's just wrap it up and get the story over with. No more new developments. Let's just close it up and end the movie. Because in the original, they had a really cool action sequence involving a shootout and our protagonist using holograms. And at the end of that, the climactic finale was Douglas Quaid, played by Arnold Schwarzenegger, activating the reactor, thus creating oxygen for everybody on Mars. That was cool. It wasn't a big fight scene between Douglas Quaid and Cohagen. It was just him activating the reactor and then them almost dying because of the being exposed to the solar radiation, and then the revelation of bringing air to the entire planet. That was cool and that was totally extraordinary. The remake, on the other hand, their grand finale was just a fight scene. It was just Colin Farrell and Bryan Cranston fighting. And that's just such a cheap and lazy way to end the movie. They could have done so much more with that. And it was really just Colin Farrell going into the fall. I don't even know how he went into the fall. The transport should have been on lockdown by the time that it was heading for the colony. The editing also got lazy in that part also. I was totally lost as whether or not Colin Farrell was actually on the fall or actually still on United Federation of Great Britain. So I really don't know what was going on, and then later on we see him in the fall. And then it just turns out to be a shootout sequence, which ultimately means that Colin Farrell is just gonna kill them all, and that in my opinion is just weak for an ending. You had these grand action sequences in the first and second act, and in the third act they had nothing to deliver to the audience. Now here's some little minor things that I just gotta ask about. What's up with the woman with the 3 breasts? I understand that Len Wiseman wanted to bring in something really iconic from the original, but why would she even have that to begin with? She's not a Martian, she's not a mutant. So the only thing I can come up with is that maybe she was exposed to the chemicals in the air, like outside of the colony, and it kind of mutated her. That's the only thing I can think of. But I'm also thinking, what about like other people? How come we don't see any other mutations? So that didn't make sense to me. I felt that, okay, fine, it was cool that Len Wiseman brought that in. I respect that he wanted to make the fans happy, but at least have some sort of writing in it to explain why she looks like that. Otherwise, it's just a sight gag. Here's another thing that maybe you guys can explain to me. In the remake, why was Laurie so anxious to kill Douglas Quaid, even though Cohaagen said not to kill him and that he wanted him alive. She mentioned that if Douglas Quaid is still alive, then we're all dead. Like, what the hell does she mean by that? I didn't get that. And if she's supposed to be under the command of Cohaagen, why was she disobeying orders? I didn't understand that at all. A disappointment of mine is I felt that, where the heck is Benny the taxi driver? That would have been so cool to have him in there, because in the original, he was a very likable character. And then, of course, he reveals he's a bad guy, and then he deserved to die. And he had a very epic death. Well, we did not get that in the remake, and I felt that what a missed opportunity. One thing that they changed in the remake that I thought was kind of unique was that Laurie represented two characters from the original, and that was Laurie and Richter, which totally made Kate Beckinsale look completely badass. And I think that because Kate Beckinsale is Len Wiseman's wife, he wanted to make sure that she totally kicked so much ass on screen, because when you compare her with Jessica Biel is totally weak as hell. And not only that, Len Wiseman made sure that Jessica Biel had no opportunity to upstage his wife. That's the arrangement that they have there between husband and wife. And another thing that they could have done was, could they explain why the colony was made up of nothing but Asians and why it looks like Chinatown? What actually happened before the actual war? Does that mean that the people of China all immigrated to Australia during the war? I mean, they really should have explained that in the movie, because that is something that really stands out. Are they trying to give a message here? United Federation of Great Britain is made up of non-ethnic people, and the colony is made up of ethnic people, mainly Asians. Like, what's that all about? Anyways, now that I got that off my chest, and I've been talking about how the third act was totally weak, let me explain to you how I think the movie should have ended. And I think that the remake should have ended in the exact same formula that the original ended. And let me explain how. It should have ended like this. Because he doesn't have Kuato to read his mind, Colin Farrell should have had flashbacks of his father or grandfather, who was maybe a construction worker or something like that. And in those flashbacks, it should have had his father or his grandfather constantly reminding him or telling him that he was meant for something bigger, and that there is so much more to this universe that they currently live in. And he has to say something very symbolic and metaphoric. For example, he should have said something like this: "You are meant for something bigger, and you must search beneath the surface." Which is actually code for there's a freaking underground city, and you have the knowledge to open the gates to the city and make it rise up from underground. And that is freaking awesome, because that is the exact equivalent of what happened in the original. In the original, Kuato helped Douglas Quaid search for within his mind to find the reactor, thus bringing air to Mars. Well, in the remake, they really should have had a flashback scene where his father was telling him that he was meant for something bigger and you must search beneath the surface. And what it actually means is that he can open the gates to this underground city, so to create more living space for all these people. See, wouldn't that make more sense? That would have been just as awesome as the first one, because the first one is about not having enough oxygen, and Cohaagen is controlling all that. Well, in the remake, they could have had that Cohaagen is controlling livable space, and thus by Douglas Quaid opening these gates, this underground city could rise up from the ground and thus make more livable space for these people of the colony. That was a missed opportunity. I gotta say that this movie was a bit of a letdown. They could have done so much more with this. They had the potential, they had a great concept to begin with, but it was a missed opportunity, and that's really too bad. But I still am gonna get this movie on Blu-ray. Yes, I know it's a bit hypocritical, because the first and second act was awesome. There was some great action sequences, and I gotta say the cinematography and all the set design was beautiful. So there are some redeeming factors about this movie, but unfortunately, like I said before, and I've said it again, the finale just sucks. Anyways, that's all I have to say in this video. Let me know in the comment section below if you can answer any of the questions that I talked about, and also, what do you think of my alternate ending for this movie? Let me know. My name is Alex Yu, and thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Peace. What made the original unique, and that is where this movie fails. One thing that Len Wiseman didn't do too well with regards to the characters is developing them.